hits, and on the factory floor today, I'm thrilled to have Mr. Don Ellis Aguillo.
Hi, how's it going? Thanks for having me. I appreciate
Thank you for making time in your very busy schedule. You're a comic artist, freelancer, illustrator. You also do a lot of other great stuff. I've seen
it.
your work in DC, Superman, Aquaman. You've got your own indie comics as well. The Rise series has gained a lot of attention, and we're thrilled to have you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, when you list all those things, I'm like, yeah, I do sound pretty busy. I guess I was always taught busy was good. So,
Yeah, it is. The devil will find work for idle hands to do. So we can consider you the angel of graphic art, and it's good to find you. We're in between the Christmas and New Year holiday, so I managed to get you on the pod. That's very exciting.
yeah, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, we met at LA Comic Con. So I was barking my science fiction book up on the first floor there in the West Gallery. Took over the LA Coliseum. It was quite a epic event. Kind of crazy, but a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, it's expanded a lot. So I'm like, I'm surprised you found us.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually on a hunt, which is part of my point.
Mhm.
I published my sci-fi novel June this year, and I'm like, wouldn't it be awesome to repurpose as a graphic novel? And
Mhm.
right below, they had repurposed the parking lot of the LA Coliseum into Artists Row. And it was fantastic. You just walk by, and there's literally at least 100 artists, I think, down there.
Yeah,
Probably close to that.
I think that was the biggest it's ever been. So it was a kind of a shock to all of us, the new format that they have there.
Yeah, and you can tell us a little bit about it from your point of view, but from my selfish point of view as a novelist looking for a potential graphic artist, I was just hunting around and I was basically just going by style. And your stuff immediately caught me and arrested my attention, both thematically for the book that I had written, but also overall in terms of its look, its feel, its intensity.
Wow.
And on the video pod here, we're going to share examples of Don's work as we talk about it. But just to express it verbally, splashes of color, a lot of airbrush work. It's very emotionally resonant, and it was just striking to me.
Oh, I appreciate that. I only have one image to tell a story, so I try to throw it as much as I possibly can onto the canvas, digital or otherwise. I realize that I don't do straight portraits very well, and I don't like to do characters just standing there. I gotta tell as much story as I can, so I appreciate that.
I think that nails it, which is the uninflected image, whether it's the cover of a comic, whether it's just a panel. They explode with not only that emotional resonance that you look for in a character, but in terms of the action, you just nail it at the right moment where it's exploding off the page, and that's what struck me as particularly distinctive and awesome about your work.
I appreciate it. That's enough fuel. That's enough fuel for the next year. So thanks.
All right, for sure. And I don't mean to just blow smoke up your ass. I think it's
No.
really terrific stuff, and it's been evinced by your growing audience and your success and popularity, as I mentioned, not only with DC's iconic characters, but your own indie stuff as well.
Well, I don't handle compliments well, but they are a good compass to at least tell me, keep doing what I'm doing. But I do, yeah, I always invite critique too, and I get a fair amount of it in DM. So this is actually a good balance. I actually got some really intense feedback today about a boot being on the wrong side for a character. So I woke up to that. So I this is a nice way to get me back on course.
Yeah, I mean, artists, especially good artists, are particularly sensitive to feedback because we're our own worst critic.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
That's what makes us good. We want
yeah.
the highest quality that we could possibly deliver. And that sense of self criticism gets heightened when we share our work with the world. And then people give us feedback. And then we're like, ah, you know.
Yeah. I mean, creative work's always autobiographical in one way or another, right? So it's like a
Yeah.
piece of ourselves out there, and we'd like to think that we put it through the gauntlet of our own our own questioning that it's ready for the world, but sometimes it just doesn't hit, and that's got to be okay, right?
Yeah, and being a perfectionist backfires too,
Hmm.
as well. Sting, the musician, once said that for someone to criticize your song is even worse than if they tell you your girlfriend is ugly, which is everything is taken personal.
Did he say that? Well, that's yeah. Okay, I see it.
So, so you mentioned LA Comic Con was different than what you were usually familiar with.
Yeah.
Was it a good experience for you? And
Uh, wow, that's a big question. It is such a different format this year that even talking to a lot of the other my friends and colleagues who have shared the floor, it was sort of a jarringly different in its expansion. It just got so big, and it keeps growing every year. That's always a good sign. Um, there are some strange artifacts on the floor, like an AI Stan Lee this year that was like that didn't hit people the right way, and it just seemed a little convenient that it was on the first floor while we were put downstairs, and it was like it separated the AI elements from the artists, and I'm like, oh, I see what's happening here.
they
I
were
don't know if that
afraid
was
of
intentional,
civil
but
war breaking out. They didn't want you guys to get violent.
I can see that. And judging from what's been happening this year with AI, and I know we'll talk about AI later, but like I know that AI has been contentious on the floor with people being sort of dismissed from Comic Cons, and people were sort of reporting each other. And I mean, even I in my digital work have been accused of doing AI, and I'm like, I couldn't be more anti. I've done too much. I've done too many new drawing classes and studied way too much Baroque art to rely on a computer to do my work for me. It doesn't honor the training at all. Even if I felt like I needed the cut in the work time, I could never resort to something like that. But yeah, 2026 is looking to be a battlefield for this, either in the courts or on the canvas. So I'm up for it. My gloves are on. Or do I take my gloves off? I'm not sure what the metaphor is. My,
I mean, either way, the fight is imminent if it's not happening already.
hmm.
And having you on as an artist who does have integrity and what's most significant, your own style. What the bots do is basically take work that people have done, human beings have done through
Right.
their own blood, sweat, and tears, lived experience, and they just aggregate it, chop it up, and amalgamate it, and repurpose it in that automated kind of way.
Right. And realizing now that we're talking about it, it's also really dangerous to assume people you engage with are anti just because they're artists or creators. And I've come across, made that assumption way too many times this year, and I just I'd bite my tongue and they'd bite theirs in the conversation. We realize we don't fall on the same side of that line anymore. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. It's a little confusing sometimes where the line is about where artists fall. Some artists are embracing it because they feel like we need to reclaim it. It didn't begin in this industry well. It started off on the bad foot. Maybe we could have used it to our own advantage if there were more guardrails at the beginning, but it doesn't seem like it's a clean conversation anymore, and it's scary, especially with authors. It's tough too because I know some authors who are using it, and some sometimes they're using it for editing purposes. Some are using it as like a glorified thesaurus, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's not a safe conversation anymore with other creators. But I also realized I can't be too careful. I don't handle niceties take up too much time. So at least stick to be honest. I'll be honest about where I am with it, and hopefully the conversation is intelligible and productive enough.
Absolutely. From the writer's side, I can attest to using it as a tool,
Yeah.
using it as a super Google. And I'm not necessarily sure if it improved my work or just made me more expeditious in writing it. So I think
Hmm.
it saved me some time as a tool. But when it crosses that boundary into doing the work for you
Hmm.
and impersonating even yourself,
That's it. Yeah.
then you've got a real issue with it.
Right. What's scary is that when it learns your language and starts to sound like you. I
Yes.
don't know how many people are there out there are starting to accept the fact that it can replace them creatively. And I'm not in people's workstations. I'm not in their space. I don't know, and I know that times are hard. So any sort of crutch or I don't I don't know. Maybe edit this part out. I I don't know where I was going with that. It's just not a clean conversation anymore.
No, you're making perfect sense, which is boundaries.
Yeah.
Where do you really draw the
Yeah.
line? And there's also an inevitability that comes with the technology. So on the one hand,
Yeah.
you don't want to be a luddite and say we need to ban it outright because it's just not feasible. It'll
Right.
it'll never happen that way. And
Right.
on the other, if it really takes over without accountability, either on the artist side or even on the business side, then it's a free for all of everyone wondering what the hell original content even means anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's one extreme or the other. I see
Hmm.
artists being enamored by AI to the point where they're just letting the bots loose and they're obsessed about AI, especially in science fiction and fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other, it's more of this Luddite approach where I want to have nothing to do with it. And, I'm going to talk about cave paintings in France and aliens. So I don't know. It's human beings tend to always be polarized, which is, I think, part of our problem, and that's never going to go away.
Yeah, yeah. During the pandemic, I could have chalked that up to people just being bored, but now it's just sort of the lay of the land, and
I think so.
polarization is just our sort of default mode. I get it.
But through the filter of you being a genuine artist, you sit there and you create. You've created your own distinctive style, which immediately became noticeable to me and exciting to me, especially vis-a-vis my own work. I thought it was just bang on point for what I love and am looking for. Tell us about your work. What's hot right now? What are you working on? What are you excited to launch? And for someone getting to know you, Don, in the moment, like pretend it's me coming across you for the first time live,
Oh man.
what would you like to share with the audience that you're particularly excited about?
So you want to relive that moment we met at LA Comic Con when you walked up?
Why,
'Cause you
why
you
not?
walked up you walked up smiling, and I really appreciated that. And it's really cool to hear when the work and the style locks in with people, especially creators like you, who are like, "Wow, this feels right for a world that I created." And I'm like, that. Not only does it look good to someone, it feels good to someone. So emotional. To invoke emotion is like the ultimate goal for me, right? I work a lot in pop culture and entertainment, and a lot of that is other people's work or other IPs, and my main goal is to be able to convey emotion or through that work. Um, what I'm excited about, however, is going back to my roots in indie comics. So I just dug up a whole bunch of pages of Rise, which was my series back in 2016 through 2018. I was published through Scout Comics, and we made it to six. We made it to six issues. I have a trade paperback ready to go, but I am going to go back into the world and retool it. So I'm really excited to show people the artist I am now by taking those old pages and updating them, and updating the language and the characterization, and just basically it would be a soft reboot for the world, which I hope doesn't come to the dismay of like existing readers who are like, I know some. I'm not tooting my own horn, but like there are some people out there who have told me they're like I'm in this world. Like I fell in love with the world that you created, and that I'm like, oh, I hope I don't betray them. Like I hope. I mean, I did right by them once, and I love, and I want to honor them for that. But I hope I don't betray them in redoing some of the work I did back then, because I'm a different person now, and I've learned a lot of things, both personally and professionally. I'm also going into horror this year, and I'm going to be beginning my horror anthology. I keep saying that I should have started it back in November, but it looks like I'm still in research mode up through March, April. So hopefully by 2027, the Kickstarter will go up with hopefully 4 stories in the pocket, ready to go. But
So
do
you're just to put a pin in it for a second,
yeah,
you're obviously an illustrator, graphic artist, but you're also a writer.
yeah. I am a storyteller. By necessity, I have to have written work to be able to form a script, to be able to wrap my artwork around. Am I a writer? I guess I'm a published writer. Uh, it is not my discipline, and I always welcome. It's a discipline I have to learn, and it'll take time before I call myself that. Whether or not people call me that is another story.
Let's go back to Rise for a second.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of context. It goes all the way back to 2016.
Hmm.
It's a breakout work for you, and it's risen in popularity to the point where you're describing your fan base as being eager.
Small
You're
family.
terrified of disappointing them,
Yeah.
and you got it going on. So you're the illustrator, but you're also the storyteller behind Rise.
Yeah, yeah. 2016 saw not dark moments of life, but challenging moments of life where I wanted to sort of address things that were going on with me personally. I broke it into an ensemble cast who sort of take each of those aspects of challenge in my life and sort of embody them. And that's sort of and I was doing yoga a lot at that time, so I was like doing a lot of reflecting in a very hot room. A lot of the world was created while I was doing yoga. Don't tell my instructor that because I'm supposed to be, you're supposed to have an empty mind in there, but really my gears were just turning every time I breathed. Um, yeah, so the context for that was, I was going through coming of age sort of themes. I was self-actualization, a lot of things that sort of resonate with growing up and taking on responsibility that you feel is too big,
Great,
too
and it
bad.
sounds, embellished by and reinforced with even the title "Rise," like rising from
Yeah.
boyhood to manhood, proving oneself, that kind of thing.
Yeah, boyhood to manhood at like 35.
Hey,
It's like
it's
I guess we're all children at play, I guess.
absolutely that I take pride in my own immaturity for sure, especially when it comes to my creativity. It's like
Yeah.
maintaining that inner child, I think, is a
If
prerequisite for
Yes,
any
exactly.
good at this whatsoever. So,
Yes.
kudos to you for hanging on to that, right?
Yeah, well, I was I realized I was hanging on to a lot more, but those kinds of that kind of baggage was fuel for the creative work. So,
Okay, so you're retooling some of the original Rise
hmm
editions to
I'm
bring them up to speed with the style that's evolved over
with
the
this.
last decade.
Yes, and at that time I was still wrapping my head around my career, and I needed the fast track, so I was doing a lot of more digital work. I actually hadn't touched pencil to paper for a good 8 to 10 years prior. So now a big part of my work is going back to traditional, especially now that I'm doing, that I'm deep in the Spawn work for Todd McFarlane, and I'm working for DC, and a lot of the cover work sort of demands being in touch with newer techniques, and by that I mean old techniques, like not basics but foundations. You know what I mean? Going back to how mark making connects with how mark making sort of directs the work, how color is created through material rather than just selecting a color on the screen, how print media works. Like it's all really exciting and scary, but that's where the retooling is happening. Rise won't look like it used to. Hopefully, it will look better and more organic and more informed.
Yeah, so in this crazy digitalista AI revolutionary age, you're going analog. You're going
Yeah, a lot of us are.
technologically backward, and that's helping you kind of ground yourself
Yeah,
creatively as well.
yeah. This is the rebellion. This is
Right.
this is the rebellion. I have a lot of mentors in the industry who are like, "Shame on you! You forgot you forgot where you came from." And I'm like, oh, I didn't forget. I just needed to be able to undo things fast, and that's that's both personally and professionally. So,
Good for you. And that sounds like a healthy therapeutic to what we were hinting at earlier with this AI civil war, which is
yeah.
rather than oppose it actively or engage with it in an irresponsible way, you're just like, whatever. I'm
Hmm.
going to go back to the roots of being a graphic artist.
Yep. Yep.
That's terrific.
Not many, not many other industries can enjoy that kind of rebellion, though. I just I know that AI is quick to replace a lot more other disciplines. At least in the comic industry, especially this year, we've had Jim Lee speak up against it and be like, as long as I am the head of DC, we will not be using AI. And I'm like, that's a lot to say for the head of DC under Warner Brothers, who has they can't say that, right? They have a gaming arm, so it's like but at least this department, at least the comics department under DC and the industry at large, I think generally is anti, which is nice.
And then you have the big corporate mergers that are constantly in play too.
Mm-hmm.
So top level management, I don't know how that's going to shake out. Everything's is in flux.
Yeah,
So,
which is it feels good that we're still a frontier. We're still sort of lone gunmen and doing finding our own path.
that's great. How did your stuff come to the attention of DC? Because again, you've worked on Aquaman and Superman and really the staples of the icons of DC.
You
How,
know,
how did you get those opportunities, and what was your attitude adopting characters and stories that were outside your yoga sweat lodge personal expression?
Uh, that's funny. The DC work came after Spawn, so I imagine my editor, Michael McAllister at DC, who I'm forever grateful to, maybe came across that more likely than having seen my independent work. So yeah, so I think Spawn came first. I think during the pandemic, which was when I began, Todd McFarlane was probably doom scrolling when he came across my Instagram, which is how he found me. And that's a funny story in itself. But yeah, DC, I think Michael found me, gave me a chance, knew I was, LGBTQIA plus creator. So, took me on for Pride, which was awesome. Had me on for Pride twice now, my first Halloween special. And it actually, he's gotten me onto 8-page short form projects, which has gotten me to practice my interior art again outside of Rise. So now I have interior art through DC credited to my name. So I get to play in those sandboxes. Yeah, and that's been a huge stepping stone towards, telling myself that I can still do this. Maybe not at the speed at some of my heroes, which is what you need in this industry as an interior artist now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my DC work, and so far he's been pushing me onto other editors to play in Gotham and to play in Metropolis. That's what they call the offices there. They call them by the different parts of the DC world. So Gotham's been a fun sandbox to play in, and now Paul Kaminsky has gotten me to do, or is having me do, a bunch of DC works currently. So Aquaman came out September. Green Lantern just came out. My Green Lantern 30 cover just came out Christmas Eve. Superman is coming out, I believe, sometime this spring, and then I'm working on a new one for Wonder Woman, Batman, Nubia cover. So
Very exciting. I mean, it's
yeah,
twofold. The one, it really legitimizes you in almost an institutional corporate kind of level, right? Because these are the behemoths of comics.
yeah.
And for you to be so independent and kind of come from left field with your own work, get recognized, then get integrated into the mothership
Yeah.
is must be phenomenal. And at the same time, it behooves you for being able to play ball, which is you get direction from other people. You need to integrate your unique personal vision with a legacy brand that's been doing its own thing.
Yeah.
And in the best case scenario, it brings out something that's greater than the sum of its parts, right? Everyone knows Aquaman, Superman, and then they get some Don.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah. DC has actually been really a lot of fun with working with their IP. Yes, they have rules, but a lot of the notes are: "We love your work. We want your voice to come out." They're very about representation. They're very about advocacy for artists at DC. I really love working really love working for them, as I do Todd McFarlane, of course. But the notes are always like, just change it to this costume. Very very specific notes, but it's clear that they don't want like a vice grip on your creative process. So
Right.
it's a lot of fun working in that sandbox, to playing in that sandbox, and they're very playful with their characters, which is very cool.
So I guess it's stay on brand. I
Yeah,
do marketing is the day job, and you got to stay on brand for your.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can't go off and in a sense violate the DNA of how people know these iconic brands and personalities and characters. But at the same time, especially in comics and graphic art, there's been this opportunity to really indulge the vision of individual creators to reinterpret and
Mm-hmm.
in many cases repurpose some of that iconic look and feel.
Mm-hmm.
So even when you go back to the Sandman Gaiman series,
Oh yeah.
using different, very, very different styles throughout each of the books. And it's present even in science fiction and fantasy on screen too. Like the Black Mirror episodes are directed
Oh
by
man.
different people and they've got different looks, different flavors. It's all Black Mirror, but it's part of the Black Mirror brand is this prism of these different voices and different sensibilities who bring it to life. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's really, really cool. And you're doing that.
Thanks. Yeah, I think they they build the trust in both directions. So they trust me to take on the work, but they also trust that I know the weight on the shoulders of everyone who touches these characters. That we do the research to know the brand, and they're so iconic that it's hard not to know the brand, right? But I also know, I'm not a household name, so I have a lot of reference material up when I do someone like Aquaman, and then I haven't partnered with the right writer yet to and have been the lead for a whole era of a character to have recreated them or re-envisioned them in some way. So I know the rules I have to play with, and
Right.
actually, I like direction, especially when handling iconic characters like this. So I have a couple years yet of building my trust with the companies before I can reimagine them.
I think you're on your way.
Yeah.
And artists get compared to other artists because it's natural for human beings to be associative that way, and we've all got
Hmm.
our little boxes. And for our own comfort, we go, "Oh, this artist is like that one or that one." But for your stuff, like Sinkowitz comes to mind with the splashing ink and
That
airbrush, and he's obviously got a tremendous legacy in the business. And the reason I bring him up is not only the similarities with some of your work, but just the fact that he's re re-engineered some really iconic figures and made them in a sense his own.
right,
Where there's a Sinkowitz look to
and
some of
it's
these
fearless.
iconic characters, and I think you're on your way, which is really badass.
Well, one thing about his work that I still am striving for is his fearlessness. Like he
Yeah.
knows the rules. He had the clout to break them, and even when he didn't get his approval, he said, "Oh, what the hell?" And back then, I mean, he was he was criticized for it. He probably lost jobs or lost relationships with it. But now it's iconic. It's something we all strive towards. The fact that you made that comparison just kind of makes me feel much smaller, because that fearlessness, every time I look at his work, is something that feels so far away. I'm heavily burdened by this need to like get the arm right, or create the line, or color in the lines, or get the positioning right. He probably went through the same process, but
I would
the output doesn't feel that way.
I
You know.
would think so. If you look at his earlier work, it tends to be much more conventional than what we know him to have
Right.
become. And I think
Yeah.
every artist, analogous to yourself, has this kind of evolution, which is, I have my own vision and my own voice, and yet I need to really follow the rules and fit in. It's that Picasso quote that
Yeah.
learn the rules like a professional, and then break them like an artist.
Yeah, I like that.
That off quoted thing, which he probably didn't say, but it is something that resonates. Which is, once you learn how to do those basics, then you get to kind of spread your wings a little bit and kind of go for it. And to your point, you're building trust within the industry. And when they know that you're reliable, that you've been respectful, then they might give you a little more room to let the Don out.
Yeah. Um, a lot of my early career, I get a lot of advice about like, oh, you just gotta play the part or fake it till you make it, or just have be confident. I'm like that. I don't know that those were useful pieces of advice because I realized this far in that kindness hand in hand with self advocacy is was the only way I was going to be able to do this because I building relationships with people and saying hello and remembering names, that's really hard for me, but the name part is hard for me, not the kindness part, but like building the names and building community around the work came more naturally than just shaking hands and like putting myself out there. Putting yourself out there is hard for, I think, most people, even for those who it comes naturally to. But like knowing that hand in hand with knowing I should email that person, even though I don't want to spoil that relationship by being annoying, like, but a lot of the opportunities that came just came from asking, is there an opportunity? May I? And then you get on people's radars because I think they remember you for kindness and humility. And
Yeah, for you being you. I mean, there's
yeah,
different strategies that work for different people,
right.
you know, and there's as many different approaches that work or fail. And some people are just over the top and
So over
demanding,
the top. Yeah.
and but it works for them even statistically, because if you're knocking on 1,000 doors and you're getting only 1%, that's 100 responses.
Oh man.
And if
Yeah.
you're more demure and you're more kind of respectful and kind, to your point, empathetic, a little bit self-conscious, and
Very
I'm
self-conscious.
a creator, I'm not a self-marketer at
Yeah,
heart, then it might be only 100 doors. But you might get that ratio much higher because you're creating an emotional connection with
I
people.
agree.
So I think you got to be true to you, which is
Yeah,
it. And people can see that.
especially at cons, sitting next to different neighbors every time, I get to study people's engagement. Not as a marketing tool, but also like as a people watcher. I just enjoy watching people and understanding engagement. And I've had really bad neighbors. I can say this. I'm not naming anyone. I've had really bad neighbors who will literally have fans who are vying for their attention, and they'll just keep their head down and see the fan and be like, "This is my work," and I'm like, how about a hello? How about a thank you? Because these fans are like, they're melting in front of you, just watching you work or asking, for attention, about a little bit of gratitude. And I think that's what I get my gratitude advice from Todd McFarlane. And he has a reputation for the businessman, right? Sort of like you know um I don't know that he's known for his gratitude, but he says thank you to his artists. He'll come to Artist Alley just to shake our hands and say hello and thank you for the work you did this year. And then when he had us up in New York, he circled us up and he thanked us for our work again. And not only that, he told me and Steven Segovia and other people, he's like, do never ever put a line between you and the people who appreciate your work, because without them, you're nothing. And they're the ones who keep you going as an artist, as a professional. They put food on the table. They put a roof over your head. Um, yeah, he gets upset when he has to cut that line and be like, "Oh, I have to be up on a panel," but then there's a whole line of people waiting to talk to him, and I love knowing that he has the reputation for being a good businessman and hard when he has to be, and then at the core of it is just gratitude to be able to do what you love to do on a daily basis, whether you do it for the money or just for the love of it, right? Because those two things don't always go hand in hand. And I appreciate that. And I've been through that. I might still be, no, I think I'm a little bit out of that now that I'm just doing this now for full time. So,
Especially these days, gratitude, appreciation in our
yeah.
culture, our society, which has gotten so mean and polarized. And
Yeah.
we've equated success with being a jerk. And
Yeah.
that's too bad. And I think bringing that humility, that sense of humility, is very, very important. And why do we do what we do? We create things, we tell stories,
Mhm.
we bring dreams to life, and we do it so it resonates with other people and hopefully makes their lives better,
Right.
self reflective in their own way. I have a struggle, I have a passion, I have a point of view. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sharing it with you. And I so sincerely appreciate that you have given me attention in this crazy world of saturated content. You've given me your attention, and we're making a connection through my art.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that a joy? I
Well,
mean, that's as good as it gets.
oh,
So
yeah.
why would you want to throw shade to people who have given you back so much?
Yeah, and you created the connection at LA Comic Con. You came back to the table like 3 times, and you kept looking at the work, and I'm like, wow, something really spoke to you. I really appreciate that. At 4 o'clock in the morning, you don't think about the person who might appreciate. You think about how tired you are when you're finishing this work. So thank you.
I mean, it was a mixture of us connecting emotionally like that, but it wasn't 100% altruistic either. I honestly felt that your art kicks ass, and it was just bang on point for my own vision of my own kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
So it was a synergy in both ways, and I think that might not be an accident either, which is people connect on all sorts of levels, right? The fact
Yeah.
that your style is what it is, coupled with your personality, coupled with our opportunity to connect, is in a sense what it's all about, which
Yeah.
is breaking down those barriers that other people insist on putting up, which is just unnecessary.
Hmm.
So it's cool, very, very, very cool. And speaking of your work, you mentioned this horror interest that's come
Hmm.
up, and knowing your style, I could see that being amazing. Tell
I've
tell us
actually
a
heard the
little bit
opposite.
about tell us a little bit about where you're headed creatively.
Um,
Repurposing Rise, you're working on the iconic characters. You got your big air quote corporate work, and then you got this horror that's building up in you. Tell us a little bit about that.
yeah, the darkness in Rise hadn't actually come up yet in the 6 issues that I have out, but it was going to tap into my background in horror. And by background, I don't mean professional work. I mean just pure like fandom of it. Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola, is my favorite movie of all time. It is. It does not hit well for certain people because they're like, "Oh, it was just an okay movie." But in terms of storytelling style, aesthetics, cinematography, it taught. It was school for me. So, and it still is. It still teaches me to this day how to make someone feel and how to make someone, how to crawl into someone and make them feel a certain way. So that's what I want to do. A lot of my early fandom was in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, that children's series. And I have my original 3 books that I got from Scholastic Books during the book fairs when we were kids. So that stuff still stays in my head as nightmares. Like some of those drawings are still festering in my head in a great way. Like I still think about the lady in the attic with the beady black eyes and the scraggly hair, and it was drawn a certain way, and the story was told so well that when you turned the page, just like a comic, even though it was prose, she hits you, the drawing hits you, and I'm like, that I want to be someone's nightmare 30 years in the future in a good way. You know what I mean? Did I say that? Yeah, I think that's how I want to say that. Yeah, I want to be able to do that. But with my current style, it's so It started off muddier, and now it's pulling in blues and pinks because it was someone challenged me to use palettes I've never used before that I was scared of. Now going back into traditional like horror palettes is sort of a second language or a language I have to relearn. But maybe I can use my current style and speak in a new language aesthetically with
Oh,
horror.
I totally see it. The
I
splashes, the splashes and explosions of emotion and color. And to your point, you love your reds and oranges. You've got a
yeah,
lot of that going on, right?
I
And then
do. Yeah.
going into the more melodramatic and kind of gothic, maybe purples and deep blues
Right. And olive
would be
greens, yeah.
really interesting for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's exciting just even talking about the color palettes. Not to mention like the subject matter or the actual folk tales that I'm using as research or urban legends. So, yeah, horror is going to be my next school. And I'm going to use 2026 to do it, and I have a lot more self psychology therapy stuff to work through. So hopefully this year I'll be able to throw that onto campus.
Tell us about your creative process. You mentioned you're going to spend 2026 just kind of visualizing and engineering the basics of this.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about putting together and evolving your style, working on a story? For me, ideas kind of float around in my bald head,
Mm-hmm.
and I just live with ideas and characters, and then I write notes,
Yeah.
and then I'll do a draft. I'm a writer with text, right? I'm alphanumeric. I'm stuck linear on the page.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm a visual creature, and
Uh-huh.
that's another reason I was so drawn to your stuff
Oh,
because
I
it's
could tell. I could tell. The movie's playing in your head.
yeah,
You're When you came to the booth, your eyes like traveled. I was like, oh, okay. He's one of those. Yeah.
that's how I work. And then after months of it percolating and a bunch of notes and outlines, I'll sit my ass down and be very immersive.
Mm-hmm.
I just go nuts with it to bring it to life in every way. But how about you? What do? You do sketches? Do you just kind of wing it? Do you have
I
images that pop into your head of certain scenes, uninflected points within a narrative?
with
How do you
Rise,
put it
yeah.
together?
With Rise, it was more of that process, right? So I adapting the script to the page turn. Um, I mean that took a long time to be able to like size panels and change the camera and things like that. That was grueling. Wow, I'm talking myself out of the process as I'm speaking. But it was also really exciting, like being able to sort of have the movie come alive on the page. Um, yeah, the process was a lot of sketching, and since I was heavily digital at the time, being able to undo cameras or turn characters was much faster. I don't know how pencilers do it these days, where they have to erase, and um, just that undoing or redoing process is so grueling. Especially if an editor is looking over your shoulder, going, "We need this." To redo a whole page in pencil, that's really scary. Um,
Yeah, Stan Lee had it rough back
yeah,
in the day. Yeah.
yeah.
And frankly, by analogy, I don't think I would be a writer if I had to write by hand.
Yeah.
The old guys like Dostoevsky in a cold Russian basement.
Yeah.
He wrote all that stuff by hand,
That's
meticulously,
crazy.
page by page, and then rewriting it, rewriting it. I don't think I'd be able to do it. I
But
type
hey,
90 words a minute. I'm typing blind, and it's got to happen.
oh no, but there's an insanity to the creation, right? Like we're all sort of uh we're all crazy. And just like I look at any accountant who smiles when they do their work, I'm like, thank God there's you because you love doing that work. You love the craziness of the numbers and it's a game to you and it lights you up. I'm like, I imagine sitting in that Russian basement that lights them up, I mean, yeah,
It's still intense. It's just a
it's
matter of
intense.
where you put your focus,
Yeah.
right? And where you want to do the heavy lifting.
you've
And
got your grueling intensity with your craft too, like that you live in, right? Like you, you enjoy
yeah,
the insanity of it,
I
even though it's
loved
not.
it. It's,
Yeah.
when I finished the novel that I was chasing you down to potentially do the graphic novel version,
Yeah.
squeeze that into your busy schedule. I just locked myself in my apartment, and I'm not kidding, for 6, 7 weeks, 18-hour days. I was living that book. I was living, and that was like the only way I think I could really do it.
Yeah.
And it was utterly grueling, but I think that was the best period that I remember in my whole life, which is just being completely immersed in this world and
Yeah.
seeing it and then just making it happen, matching the vision with the execution. And I'm
That's
and I'm assuming that delta is something that you struggle to overcome and join, right? You've got a vision for how this is going.
yeah. It doesn't always hit the mark, but course correcting can be exciting too. Or
Yeah.
the happy mistakes happen. You know, just like I just like Bob Ross says, happy mistakes and stuff. So
Speaking of AI, that's the biggest AI slop meme, which
yeah.
is him doing his paintings and talking about his grandmother's underwear and whatever.
Oh man. Yeah, there's a lot out there. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's pretty funny and tragic at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's rough.
To me, it's when I think about the work that you do, I think in terms of storyboarding.
Hmm.
So that's the essence, really. Like David Mamet said, when it comes to theater, and the same rules apply to literature, everything is the scene. You got the beginning
Hmm.
of a scene, you got a middle, and you got an end. And if you're a good writer, you get in late and you get out early. You don't give too much backstory because you let the drama emerge
Right,
from the
right.
characters with their conflicts, fighting each other with a clear goal in mind, and then you just kind of set them loose. But where it comes together, I think in your world, and to a certain extent in mine too, as a novelist, is in the scene. And the components of every scene can be storyboarded, whether you're actually creating a storyboard or not. That's how these roll out. Scene consisting of uninflected image, uninflected image, uninflected image.
Hmm.
And in that image, you got to capture that moment, which, to the point you made earlier, ultimately drives the story forward.
Right.
So a lot of that's
Everything
going
is
on unconsciously, but how do you do that? How do you make that happen? At what point do you start storyboarding your work, or is it just part of the same process?
back this is part of the reason I have to retool it because I had so much unnecessary how do I say this? I was primarily an artist back then, so a lot of the feedback I got from my editors was that there's so many beautiful images, and again, I'm not tooting my own horn. There were beautiful images that had to be covered by text and bubbles and things like that, and there were so many words that they would cover. It's like it was too much. It was too much. There was nothing. A lot of it was unnecessary. A lot of it didn't ultimately drive the story forward, like you said. So, as the 6 issues went on, you could see that the art was more sparse and more uh, uh, yeah, a lot more deliberate and
Yeah,
not
and more,
just
more
flourished.
confident in ways. Like
Yeah,
where you need the panel to get you to. Like
yeah,
where it's at in the scene, and every panel needs to do one damn thing.
yeah,
Same thing for writing. Every paragraph, you got to know where the hell you are and where you're going.
yeah.
And that needs to be crystal clear, I think, to the
Crystal.
artist. No matter how abstract you are and how, you're going off, you're getting poetic or you're getting kind of whacked out, it's got to be based on knowing where you are, knowing where you're going to get to, because that's how people absorb this info, right? They want to
Yeah,
take you on a journey.
yeah. A lot of the basic training was, but I want the reader to have all of this. I want them to have the entire kit, but if they don't need this, but it was in my head. Like there was one scene where I had a particular panel and I had it in my head and I wrapped the entire scene around this panel and I was told, you don't actually need this panel. In fact, please take it out. And when I took it out, I'm like, oh, the story, I hated doing it, but yeah, ultimately it served the
Yeah,
narrative. And
no shame in that. I think Tarantino was best, talking about film, because we're really talking about storytelling. It doesn't matter the modality. When he had Sally Menke as an editor,
yeah,
his movies, I think, were better
yeah,
because she had the gumption, and that was probably the only person that he would trust and listen to, which, you know what? You just got to drop it. You got to chop it out, and you got to kind of get to it. Because as creators, we fall in love with our own stuff.
yeah.
And
There's
sometimes
that.
we get in our own way, at least as far as the storytelling goes.
Yeah. I have a
Yeah.
lot of iterations in my files. I'm like, this is the old file number 2 because it's precious to me. But here's the page that I put in the book. Like I have a lot of my storage is just filled with treasure trove of things I will never look at again, but are so precious to me. Yeah.
And talking about emotion, and just, if you're comfortable, your LGBTQ identity.
Hmm.
And we're living in an age now where there's so much whiplash about identity and
Hmm.
personal pride and all that. How do you interpret where we're at, and how does your identity influence some of your art? Because
Um,
I venture to assume that it's significant and it's an
it's significant.
important part of your life.
Yeah.
And again, I just want to, how we're doing a counterstroke to AI, like
Yeah.
just be yourself, be human.
Yeah.
I just want to take a moment now, if you're comfortable with it again, to do a counterstroke to this pushback that, my identity is bullshit. It doesn't matter who I am and where I come from. I'm just a person, and I'm
Yeah.
going to perform. So
I'm
I call bullshit on that, and I would love to hear from you how, your identity makes the difference.
Yeah, I actually think I think the counter, it does matter where I come from, and it doesn't matter, and that's what makes me a person. So, I know that I'm a gay man who came out at 30, and I feel like I'm behind in my life. Like
How old are you now, if you don't
I'm
mind me asking?
42, I
You're
think.
how
Yeah,
old?
I'm 42. 42.
42. Okay, so you
Yeah,
didn't come out until you were 30, which is
yeah. Yeah, and from a conservative Asian immigrant family, that's a particular worldview, and a particular identity that sort of challenges your ability to be honest with others and yourself, especially your
absolutely.
parents. And I grew up in State College, Pennsylvania, which is a particularly purple part of the state. But like 5 miles outside city limits, I'm not safe. I don't feel safe. So I know that that is not a universal experience. So the part that's universal is the feeling of needing to feel safe, needing to feel free, needing to be honest with myself and honest with the people around you. It's like I masked a lot when I was a kid. I was afraid to connect to people because I would be afraid to give them too much. Rise was a huge part Yeah, Rise was a huge part of that coming out process. It happened after the fact, but there were still some remnants of trauma there that I needed to sort of work through, and self actualization and uh, being honest with the people around you and holding secrets in, like those are all part woven into the fabric of the book. Unfortunately, I didn't get to explore it as much in 2016 when these were fresher in my mind. But given the current state of things, having an identity is somewhat so important right now, even though it looks like more than half this country doesn't feel that way. I don't know. Was that too political a statement? I don't even care
Oh
anymore.
no,
Yeah.
I think again, it's not really about being political one way
Mm.
or another, but it's acknowledging our humanity, our
Yeah.
humility. We talked about gratitude. We talked about appreciation. We also
Hmm.
talked about being genuine and honest with yourself as a creator in this world of AI. Now that the bots are kind of taking over, And
Yep.
I think a lot of humans are letting themselves be taken over by a bot-like mentality that just because you want it to be so or think it should be so, it's so. And underneath that is a vulnerable humanity that is being discarded.
Hmm.
And I just think that's the heart of what we do as creative people.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is, if you deny that, then where do you go with that? Go ahead and have the bot do the voiceover of your audiobook and do all the art and have it write the goddamn thing for you too at this point. But if we're
yeah.
going to stay true to ourselves, we got to acknowledge where we come from, who we are, where we're going, and not use it as leverage against anyone, but just to acknowledge that this is what shaped me as a person. This
Yeah,
is who I am.
yeah. I think making the decision to be honest about that is hard for a lot of people. I think AI is the result of people not wanting to make those decisions or taking the action. That's actually doing the work. Figuratively speaking and literally speaking, doing the work is what makes us human. Like that's but people feel like they want to be immortal when they don't have the time to do the work, and they want to cut that time, and instead what we're doing is we're cutting out that humanity. Yeah, so I've had a lot of people talk at me like, why are you being an artist? That's a waste of time. Do you like not having money? Even though that's not the case anymore. I'm living a healthy life in the most. I'm told San Francisco is the most expensive city in the world. I've lived here for 15 years, and I haven't felt that. Like, you learn to live where you live. It's just you learn to live how you live too. Like, whether or not you're in the closet or out of the closet. It's just like, what are you going to decide is the struggle you can handle? For me, the
And you're
struggle
a
was,
working artist. You're
yeah,
doing it. You're doing it.
yeah. I can't be a naturalized immigrant, working artist, a gay man, and have to deal with all those things at the same time. I came out because I'm like, I want to have real relationships, even with my family. I'm one of the lucky ones who had a family who, at least for the most part, were like, yeah, you're the same person you always were. I just have to adjust to the fact that you're gonna be, introducing boyfriends now. Um,
And
and as
what's the big deal,
what
right?
what's the
You know.
big? As soon as I said it, it didn't matter. Like, it wasn't a thing anymore, right? And
Yeah.
that's the way it should always be. I think people have a harder time understanding how I'm a working artist than the other thing.
That is so on point.
That's funny. It's
That
funny.
is just a terrific observation. Be gay, be trans, be whatever. But how could you possibly make money from this? And how could you wake up in the morning and do what you love?
Yeah,
Because most people do not. Most people associate making a living with a grind, with hating what they do, making all these sacrifices. And one day when they retire, they're going to write that book. They're going to paint that painting. They're going to do what they always want. And before they know it, they are dead.
that's that is true with sexual identity as well.
100,000 million%.
So
You
I
crack me
mean,
up.
as an immigrant, we're told that story, that struggle has to be your story. It has to be hard, or it isn't worthwhile. It isn't really living. And while sacrifice is a part of life, it is not your whole life. That's really unfair to someone's soul and someone's identity. So, um, but yeah,
And
I mean,
some of the sacrifice that counts is the point you made just a little while ago about work hard. There's also this feeling that if you're going to be an artist, you just kind of you snap your fingers and then you're just so brilliant that the
AI.
shit just appears on the page. That
There is
you're like Mozart, you acted crazy and then you just scribbled out the notes and then you have the nutcracker suite.
well, they invented
And
that, so
yeah, and if we are talking about sacrifice, it's the sacrifice and hard work of actually being an artist, where you live it, you do it every damn day, and it becomes a part of who you are. And it's
hmm
and it's hard, and it's work, but it's glorious. It is so awesome in an analogous way where coming out would be awesome and accepting who you are and what you do would be awesome, and
Mm-hmm.
actually going for it. Like if you believe that you can do something that you love, then do something that you love, and then shit'll work out or it won't, but at least you're doing what you love.
Oh yeah. And whether or not it's about sexual identity or a creative profession, we do stand on people's shoulders. Like the allyship in both those worlds. Like I stand on my friends who have been like, yeah, oh my God, you're a comic artist. This is what you wanted since you were little. And, you know, some of my friends are like, yeah, I work in government and that's what I love to do. But like a part of me, you know, wants that, always wanted that. I'm just not an artist, you know. And even the editors who advocate for me, and then the allyship with, I mean, we stand on shoulders. We don't do this in a vacuum. We don't do this all by ourselves. And part of that, you know, is you build the trust and then it pays off in the end. The people will be there for you when you've shown them that, you know, you're being an honest and genuine person. Hopefully, not everyone is that lucky. I know that, but that's speaking from the privilege of having built those connections and trusts. So
Absolutely. It's community. So you're
yeah,
talking about the artistic community. You know, you're like-minded souls, rising tides raise all boats. You don't need
yep,
to have to compete and kill each other and be political about it, be shady, right?
yeah. Especially in recent years, people have been talking about how saturated this industry is, whether it is the literary industry or the comic industry, and I'm like, why are ideas supposed to be contained in a finite space? I don't understand how that works. I don't really understand how that works. We have almost 8 billion voices on this earth. None of them are exactly alike. I don't understand how that works. And they're looking at finite as in money, I think, right? Not ideas.
It becomes a zero-sum game
Yeah,
of raw competition because resources are finite, but imagination, to your great point, is not,
yeah,
at least in realistic physical terms. It's boundless. And if one person does something and then you do something else, and even if there's a little bit of overlap and influence, that's really part of the creative process. And there's really plenty to go around. All it takes is that commitment and hard work. And
yeah.
people can recognize that. You know, when people meet and see each other, this idea of being dedicated to craft and
Hmm.
living the life, it's kind of like Fight Club. You
Yeah,
don't
it is.
necessarily say you're in Fight Club, but you could feel it that this motherfucker is hard at work every damn day doing their art. And
You've
when
got
two,
you've got your bruises. You know.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, people can see that, right? And it might not be like a black eye and stuff, but
Sometimes it is.
but
Sometimes you slam your head into the desk out of
exactly.
exhaustion and wake up next to your, open laptop, right? Yeah. Like,
George Lucas, when he was writing the script to Star Wars, apparently had scissors and he would like neurotically clip his hair.
ooh.
And he was like all patchy and almost bald before he finished the finished Star Wars. So,
Do you have your nervous tics?
well, as you could tell. Yeah, my nervous tick is just I do some pacing.
You
I'm a
pacing.
compulsive coffee drinker, and I get into these like hypermanic, like immersive states, like
Mm-hmm.
finishing the last novel where I'm just nuts. I'm all the way in. I'm in full like Mookie monk mode
That's
where
awesome.
just I'm sleeping, eating, excreting, and working on
Yeah,
it.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
The pacing helps though, right, with your creative process, or is that an empty mind thing, or what?
It totally helps. And
Yeah.
and I'm amalgamating ideas and thoughts and feelings over the course of like months. And then I can't balance my checkbook, and I'm a total moron when it comes to a lot of different things. But when it comes to like my story and my ideas, it all fits in here, and it's just gelling. I see
Mm-hmm.
it all, and that's so pleasurable to me. Just like a way of operating.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wish I could draw in pace. I can't do that.
Everyone's got their own style, which is not only in terms of like output, but in terms of the process itself. And as long as you work hard and keep grinding, I think good things will happen.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks so much for your time, Don
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. This was
Aguillo.
yeah this opened me up a lot more than I had anticipated. Not that I was underestimating the thing, but I was like, we went into some stuff there. I appreciate that.
But this is how I like to roll, which
Yeah,
is
this is good.
if two people make the time to actually sit down for a podcast,
Yeah.
if you don't get to where we went to, then what's the damn point, right? Because
Yeah. People
yeah,
already know and see the work. I agree. I can't really
yeah,
talk about the work too much. People want to
yeah.
know what's behind it. So it's cool to see the two humans behind the work.
And what's behind it, as far as your work goes, is one cool cat.
Thanks.
And
You
I'd
too.
love to catch up with you in 6 months to see how the horror's going. And
Both on and off the canvas, right?
yeah, absolutely the
Yeah.
horrors.
Yeah.
So thanks again, and
Same.
thanks for watching and listening to the Science Fiction and Fantasy Factory. I'm your host, Mookie Spitz. We've had Don on board from the factory floor, and it's been wonderful. Like, comment, share. In the description below, I will put links to Don's The Art of Don Aguillo, right? Is .com is
Mm-hmm.
your website. We'll put
Yep.
that in there. And any other assets or links or resources so you can go check out more of Don and keep the conversation going. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Keep going.